From knowing that the Titan submersible was a nautical nightmare in the making, to almost dying multiple times on underwater missions, here are some crazy facts you didn't know about James Cameron. You'd think he's merely another ace director from Hollywood. But as it turns out, he knew that the recent Titanic tourist submersible disaster was on the horizon. Now, I'm not saying he's a Simpson who predicted it in a trippy TV episode. Oh no, our man was equipped with cold, harsh facts, and he presented them all, discussing the recent Titan catastrophe that took 5 lives. Cameron dropped a major bombshell that he and many other deep-sea engineering professionals had been warning OceanGate that their designs were a recipe for chaos. They weren't even certified, guys. The mini-sub was an experimental design. So, experts wrote many letters to the company, calling out the use of weak and unfit materials. The filmmaker also pointed out that the wear and tear from these missions caused microscopic damage to the vessel. So really, every trip down could have been life-ending. Unfortunately for Stockton Rush, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, and the others, their dive on June 18, 2023, became the last. Get this, James was super close with Nargeolet, a French maritime explorer and Titanic expert nicknamed Mr. Titanic. Naturally, the director was gutted by his friend's death. He was also struck by the incident's similarity with the original doomed ship. RMS Titanic's captain was also warned many times about the icebergs, but did he listen? Nope, and what happened next was utterly tragic. Now, even though James' statements were logical, trolls attacked him saying, just because he made a movie about the ship, suddenly he's an expert on the OceanGate sub? Well, what if I told you Cameron has visited the shipwreck 33 times? You heard that right. The guy said that he'd spent more hours with the wreck than perhaps the actual captain did back in the day. Of course, it was all part of the research for his smash hit 1997 flick, but it taught the filmmaker everything he needed to know about the risks of deep-sea diving. That too, in the harsh, unforgiving waters of the Atlantic Ocean. And get a load of this, the dude's a submersible designer too. So yeah, he is an expert at this point. James and the ocean are a match made in salty heaven. He's a hardcore ocean explorer, a total adrenaline junkie, and a bigger tech geek than that. All of his career, he's been diving into cutting-edge technology to create masterpieces. For Avatar, the guy invented a whole new technology, performance capture, to bring the blue aliens to life. So you better believe he'd go to extreme depths for Titanic, paying a visit to the original ship's biting cold, watery grave to soak up every little detail, nook and cranny, and recreate it with mind-blowing accuracy. He also brought back some of the real-life footage, which has been featured in the movie. I bet you're wondering about the design of the sub, too. Well, it turns out that wasn't for Titanic. It was more of a personal mission for Cameron, a lifelong dream to visit the Mariana Trench. So he created a groundbreaking submersible to make it a reality, and as a bonus, wrote his name in the history books as the first person to solo dive there. Yep, he really created a whole sub to visit the deepest known point on Earth, just for kicks. Who does that? James Cameron, that's who. Before him, only 2 professional oceanographers had done a team dive at Mariana Trench in 1960. And then, for over half a century, no human went to those depths again. Our guy decided to change that in 2012. He came up with a 24-foot-long green vessel that moved vertically through the water. If you're having trouble imagining that, James described it as a long green torpedo called the Deep Sea Challenger. Aptly named, I gotta say. Now pictures, or it didn't happen, right? That's why the Canadian director had many cameras on board, and a thick window acted as his viewing port, to witness his dream come to life. He once opened up about the moment he touched down, and all he could say was, "Surface, this is Deep Sea Challenger. I'm on the bottom." Not as memorable as Neil Armstrong's one small step for man, which our diver regretted right there at the bottom, but at least he came back to tell the tale. He said that several of his pieces of equipment crumbled under the ocean's pressure. His compass was glitching, and the sonar died completely. Yikes. Thankfully, the switch that was supposed to bring him back worked like a charm. Well, some would say going there in the first place was crazy, but trust me, crazy is his middle name. Would you believe that he sold the Terminator's rights for just $1? Yeah, the same franchise that's worth millions now. Anyone would be crying a river about that now. And James has expressed regret too. But once you hear his reasons, it doesn't seem so stupid anymore. This is about a time when the now Wizard of the Lens was a nobody. He had a movie idea about an insane time travel robot saga. But nobody was interested in hiring him. Ouch! No wonder he got desperate. So he landed at producer Gail Ann Hurd's doorstep, offering his brainchild for a drop-in-the-ocean amount of $1. But he had one condition. No one else gets to direct it but him. Gail was game, ready to turn a measly crumb of a dollar into millions. And that's exactly what happened. The 1984 film went out to steal the shows, earning around $80 million on a budget of $6 million. Not too shabby, right? And it doesn't even include what the sequels made later, even the latest one. Released in 2019, Terminator Dark Fate scooped around $260 million at the box office. Now that's just more salt in the wound. So yes, even though the deal put James on Hollywood's radar, he once said if he had a time machine, he'd go back and tell himself not to do it. You gotta admit, selling your passion project in desperation hurts differently. Want to know how Cameron came up with the idea for the Terminator series? He dreamed it, guys. In fact, many of his movie ideas come straight from his dreams. Let's start with this Arnold Schwarzenegger flick. The filmmaking guru was burning with fever when he came up with it. He saw a chrome skeleton coming out of a fire in his dream, and as soon as he woke up, he started sketching the character, and the story plot came next. Then for his sci-fi classic Aliens, James had a nightmare in which he stood in a pitch-black room and its walls were covered with wasps. If he moved, they'd attack him. Now, when I say it like that, it seems so random. But spoiler alert, it's the movie's climax. In the scene, Sigourney Weaver's Ellen is trying to escape the xenomorph hive, only to discover she's walked into an area surrounded by alien eggs. So, straight from imagination to the big screen. And the most jaw-dropping of them all is Cameron's Blue $1 billion franchise. Any guesses what? Damn right, I'm talking about Avatar. This goes back to when he was just 19, dreaming about a bioluminescent forest with purple moss and flying lizards. Again, he drew it as soon as he woke up, broke the box office's records, and even has the drawing to this day. Jim calls his dreams his own private streaming service that runs every night for free. Wow, I wouldn't mind a dream mill churning out $1 billion worth of ideas like these. Gotta say, the director has been super lucky to live his dreams. He even says he made Titanic just for the production to finance his voyages to the wreck. But sometimes dreams can be costly, my friend. And Cameron has had some alarmingly close brushes with death on these trips. Check this out. In 1995, he and his Russian pilot went for a submersible dive to the cursed shipwreck and got caught in a sandstorm underwater. Yep, thanks to lethal currents, that's a horrifying reality. This storm trapped their submarine on the ocean floor. They tried to abort the mission, but the deep-sea currents weren't letting them go that easy. Hear this. They stayed stuck for half hour until their third attempt to break free finally worked. So was that the director's last underwater voyage? Oh, no, that was only the third, fam. And he went back 30 more times. Some would say he should have learned from this incident, but then again, he nearly died underwater filming The Abyss, too. In the late 80s, James turned the Cherokee nuclear plant into one of the largest pools in the world to make it look like an abyss. He went for a dive in it, and his oxygen levels dropped. The ace filmmaker took all his gear off in a panic, and a safety diver rushed to help, but his equipment was faulty too. It caused Cameron to take in water instead of air. The rescuer didn't realize that, and wasn't letting him go. The guy had to punch the diver to break free and make it to the surface. Wow. So from almost dying multiple times on underwater missions, to knowing that the Titan submersible was a nautical nightmare in the making, those were all the crazy facts you didn't know about James Cameron.